Hey guys, HDV here and welcome to a brand new video. Today we've got some pretty cool things to go over. We have some new hints suggesting that we're going to be getting a second set of starter Pokemon in Pokemon Legends ZA. We also have some Generation 10 rumors and hints to go over around the release date of that. A lot of things to break down today, so if you're excited for the video, make sure to drop a like down below. It's trying to hit 500 likes, really helps out. Leave a comment, subscribe if you're brand new, and let's get into the video. So, starting things off, let's go over this hint that suggests that we might be seeing a second set of starter Pokemon in Pokemon Legends ZA. So we've got Pearl Enthusiast here tweeting out saying it'll be interesting to see if we get another set of starter Pokemon like we did in Pokemon X and Y. If you haven't played Pokemon X and Y, well, you need to play it because it's such a great game. But basically, you start off with your Kalos starter, and then when you get to Sycamore's lab in Lumiose City in Kalos, which of course where Pokemon Legends ZA is set, you then get a second set of starter Pokemon, which are the Kanto starters, which can all Mega Evolve. So we then go on to say Sycamore's lab is in the game, located at the end of Wild Area 1. So you might be able to access it early in the game. I'm personally hoping for Mega Kalos starters. So Wild Area 1 is very likely going to be around the same level point as that you'd be in Pokemon X and Y when you get your second set of starter Pokemon. The second set of starters in Pokemon X and Y are all level 10, being Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. And by the time you get there, your levels are around... I mean, it depends how much you battle and how much XP you grab and stuff, but you're going to be basically around 12 to 15, so you're going to be a little bit higher than the level of the starter Pokemon that you get. Whereas in Wild Area 1, your levels are probably going to be around that, and as you can see in this image here, this is Sycamore's lab. So, it's in the game. Does that mean Sycamore's in the game? It doesn't. It could just be the same building, but obviously run by a different professor or run by somebody else. But the fact that his lab is there around the same point that you'd be at in Pokemon X and Y, if that makes sense, means that maybe we do get a second set of starter Pokemon when we get past the first wild area. So we obviously get our Johto starter or Tepig, go through Wild Area 1, get to Sycamore's lab, and then he greets you and he's like, oh, nice job getting through Area 1. Go and grab another starter Pokemon. And maybe that's how we get the Gen 6 starters, and maybe that is how we get Mega Evolution for the Gen 6 starters as well. He also goes on to say, like many people have pointed out, this game probably takes place roughly 12 years after Pokemon X and Y, so we should see a few returning characters. So yeah, if it does take place, let's say a decade after the events of X and Y, like Sycamore is probably still going to be the professor, and he's probably still going to be giving out starter Pokemon. Something may have happened as to why the Gen 6 starters aren't the Gen 6 starters. It does say on the website that certain circumstances happen, and then that's how we get the starters. So we get to Kalos, or we get to Lumiose City, we don't go to the professor to get a starter, something else happens to us, so maybe somebody else is just traveling with random Pokemon and they give us one of the starters, and then we get to the professor and we get the actual starter of the region, if that makes sense. So I'm all in for like a second set of starters. I think it's because these pop up and around the same time and around the same sort of levels you'd be, I'm on team second set of starters, and it'd allow you to get one of the Gen 6 stars, it'd allow them to all have Mega Evolutions, it'd also be a really cool throwback as well. If that is the case though, how do we then get the Kanto starters? Because we already know that Charizard X and Y are in this game, which means that Venusaur and Blastoise are also most likely going to be in the game. They are more likely just to be in the wild, in my opinion, but I don't know. At the same time, we could get a third set of starter Pokemon. It's very unlikely, but that is something that could happen. What are your thoughts, though? Do you think that we might be getting a second set of starter Pokemon in this game? And if we do, what do you think the Pokemon are going to be? Do you think it's going to be the Gen 6 starters or the Kanto starters or something completely different? Let me know your thoughts on all that. Moving on, we do also have this to go over as well from Soul Silver Art, and it's regarding sort of returning characters, stuff like that. So he says, when I heard that Pokemon Legends ZA might take place in the present, I was sad because Pokemon Legends Arceus introduced characters and like ancestors of characters. But I was happy to see that there's a possibility that the Pokemon Legends ZA characters may be relatives of known characters. So Jet is the hardest one to guess. I think she could be related to anybody below. So Elena, just because they look kind of similar. I mean, this is Jet. It says, I'm sorry I failed to properly express my appreciation sooner. So that's Jet, and then this is Elena. You can kind of see the similarities. She looks a lot older than Elena, though. So maybe if it is set around the events of Pokemon Sword and Shield, this could be like Elena's mother or something like that. Then says Seabold, because the hair is very similar and connected to Kalos. So this is Seabold here. Obviously, the connections to Kalos, very obvious. And yeah, you can kind of see, you know, same hair color, stuff like that. Potentially could be like, but then again, she looks older than him as well. So maybe this could be his, I don't know, maybe her son or something like that. And then also Colrus, because the hair is similar and he's a tech scientist, and Jet is the head of Quasartico, which is making huge advances in tech. So that's the similarity there. So obviously they're both blonde and they're both kind of like technologically adapted and stuff like that. I say possibly though, because this could just be us fans trying to find a connection when it's not there, and these are actually just new original characters. And then obviously with that being said, I also want to say that she could be related to a million other characters. I have another theory coming soon actually, but also it'd be funny if she was a Glitterati. She kind of reminds me of them. Which obviously Billy and Onair from Generation 9. So either way, very, very interesting. Could be, again, related. Could just be trying to find sort of connections with characters. I kind of think we just want to see descendants and stuff in this game, because that's what a big part of Legends Arceus was. So it would be cool to see something like that. Anyway, that's that. And then also moving on, Generation 10. This was a post from Game Rant saying Pokemon Legends EA's newly announced release window could have some interesting implications for the next generation of Pokemon games. So Pokemon Legends EA's release window could give us some clues as to when Generation 10 is coming out. So most Pokemon generations last about 3 years, but Gen 9 may break that trend. So as most Pokemon enthusiasts will know, the term generation is used to describe the period of time between the release of a mainline entry in the Pokemon series. The current generation of Pokemon games, Generation 9, started off in 2022, following the launch of Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. These two Pokemon titles, as hard it is to believe, are already over 2 years old. Judging by the patterns in the series release schedule, the next generation of Pokemon games should be on the horizon. So ever since Game Freak released Pokemon Black and White on the Nintendo DS in 2010, it has been launching a new pair of mainline entries in the series once every 3 years. It appears that this streak is finally going to break, however, with Generation 9, unless Game Freak surprises fans by releasing a new pair of mainline Pokemon games this year, which is highly unlikely given Pokemon Legends EA's release window, which is of course late 2025. Gen 9 will be the first generation since Generation 4 to have a 4-year duration. So the Gen 10 Pokemon games may be released in late 2026 on both the Switch and the Switch 2. So the release cadence of the recent Pokemon games may provide additional insight into Generation 10's potential launch window. The latest Pokemon Legends game, Pokemon Legends Arceus, made its debut in January 2022. Meanwhile, the newest mainline entries in the series, Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet, were launched in November of that year. If Generation 10 follows a similar trend, then perhaps the next mainline Pokemon games will come out around 10 to 11 months after Pokemon Legends EA hits some shelves. Game Freak has made a habit of launching mainline entries into the Pokemon franchise during the month of November, so it's reasonable to assume that the Gen 10 games will be released in November 2026. Although Nintendo's next console, the Nintendo Switch 2, will almost certainly be out by the time that the next mainline Pokemon games are released. Again, the Switch 2 is very likely to be coming out June, July-ish this year. It is entirely possible, if not likely, that they will be launched on the original Switch as well. I really hope they're not. I mean, I understand why, because obviously if Legends EA comes out, it's a Switch 1 game, playable on the Switch 2, potentially going to have an enhanced version for the Switch 2. That's fine. It's going to be playable on both consoles. It is what it is. Generation 10 comes out a year later, let's say November 2026. Not everyone is going to have a Switch 2 by then. Obviously, the Switch 2 would have been out for maybe nearly a year and a half by then, so a decent amount of people will have it, but not everybody will. And so maybe they just want to drop this game on the Switch 1 as well, just so everybody can grab it. Whether they have the Switch 1 or they have the Switch 2, you can grab it. I'm fine with this because I'm playing it on the Switch 2. Like, I'm playing Legends EA on the Switch 2. Like, I ain't playing like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is the last Pokemon game I've ever played on the Switch 1, because Legends EA is going to be out after the Switch 2. Whether it has an enhanced version or not, I'm playing it on the Switch 2 because it's backwards compatible. With Generation 10, it's going to run terribly on the Switch unless it's a very dumbed down version. It's going to have to be very minimalistic to be able to run very well on the Switch 1. We all saw how bad Gen 9 ran on the Switch 1. Gen 10's going to only be worse than that. Whereas the Switch 2, Generation 10's going to, you'd like to think, work flawlessly on it. So for me, it doesn't really matter. And I assume if you are like a Nintendo fan and a Pokemon fan, you're probably going to have the Switch 2 by the time it's November 2026, because you're going to want to play the game on the newest console. But we know that it's probably coming out on the Switch 1 as well, because they have done like test builds on the Switch 1 and stuff. Now, we don't know if they did those test builds to see if they could actually run it or not. Maybe it can't even run on it. But either way, they go on to say there are multiple major installments in the Pokemon series that have been released very late in the life cycle of Nintendo's handhelds, so the Gen 10 Pokemon games could follow the same pattern. I mean, with Black and White 2, I believe, the 3DS was out when Black and White came out on the DS. So it could have been made for the 3DS. Obviously, it wasn't. It was made for the DS, but it was playable on the 3DS, which is exactly the same as what's happening with Legends ZA. It's going to be out on the Switch, even though the Switch 2 is out, but then it's playable on the Switch 2. Considering how popular the Nintendo Switch still is, it's hard to imagine the Game Freak won't release these upcoming titles on the console, even if it is pretty old. I mean, you're going to be pushing 10 years on the Nintendo Switch when Gen 10 comes out, I'm pretty sure, like 9 or 10 years. So obviously it's not going to run anyway because it's a decade old. But either way, wanted to quickly go over that. What are your thoughts on this though? Do you think that Generation 10 is going to be coming out November 2026, or do you think they're going to be changing up? And also, do you think that Generation 10 is going to be on both Switch consoles or just the Switch 2? And then finishing things off, we have a Generation 10 rumor to go over as well. I know we just got a Legends ZA trailer. Why am I going over Gen 10 stuff? But I thought it'd kind of, I don't know, just be a nice little end to the video after we've just been talking about Gen 10. But anyway, this was posted a while ago on the 6th of February, only just getting around to going over it because obviously there's been loads of Legends ZA stuff. But either way, Gen 10 is the title. It hasn't been confirmed real or false because there's nothing in here about the Pokemon Presents, so we still have to wait and see. But it says name of the title seems to be related to elements. Again, I think the titles would be Wind and Wave. I think that's a really cool, nice name, or Sea and Sky or something like that. It says the region is set in what looks to be a northern country with tons of lakes and oceans, likely Canada or one of the Scandinavia countries. I mean, we know that it's going to be an archipelago of islands. That's what the Terra Leaker said. But then the Terra Leaker did also say that we were going to get a Splatoon-like Pokemon game, and we didn't get that. You know, Champions is not a Splatoon-like Pokemon game. So yeah, I don't know what happened with that. Maybe the Terra League got it wrong, who knows? The star's Pokemon are a grass rodent. It looks like a mouse or a hamster. A fire ungulate looks like, I probably pronounced that wrong. I've never even seen that word in my life, but it looks like a donkey or a gazelle. And a water mollusk or a crustacean, it looks like a snail or a hermit crab. And then it goes on to say the boxed legendary Pokemon are based on 2 different species. It doesn't say what they are, but I assume if it's related to elements, it's going to be, you know, something to do with that. There's a new battle gimmick, but it's not a form change. Again, I'm still on the idea that it's going to be fusion in Generation 10, and that is going to be the gimmick for these games. Not that every Pokemon is going to be able to fuse with every Pokemon, but a select few, like 15 fusions in the game. And then it says, there are new convergent forms, including one from Generation 4 and the other from Generation 6. So there's only going to be 2 new convergent forms, which, I mean, depending on what we get in Legends ZA, they might be kind of going more into that. Like, we only got 2 new forms in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and we got quite a couple more. Well, we got a couple convergent forms, but we were supposed to get more. Like, I think Magikarp and Gyarados were leaked. Obviously, we got Tentacool and the Diglett convergent forms, but we were supposed to get more. And then obviously there are new evolutions, including one from Generation 2. I would love that to be a Ledian evolution, something like that. I really need Ledian to get some new form of life. It's not the greatest Pokemon. It just needs that boost. A little bit like what Mega Beedrill got and stuff like that. And then it says, and finally, a character from a previous generation will reappear in these games. So, not really giving a lot of information there. I mean, it's likely that a Pokemon character will return in Generation 10. Who that is, we obviously have no idea. They don't tell us. But yeah, all in all, I think this, I don't know, it kind of goes against what we know about the game already from the Terra League, even though it is very, very small information that we know about the Terra League. There's going to be a new battle gimmick because there's always a new battle gimmick in Pokemon games. Previously, I thought that Generation 10 was going to have Mega Evolutions because I was like, well, you can't introduce loads of Mega Evolutions in Legends ZA, which isn't going to be an online competitive game, because then what are you going to do with those Mega Evolutions? But with the announcement of Pokemon Champions, they're just going to throw all the Mega Evolutions that are brand new in Legends ZA into Pokemon Champions, and then you can use them in that game, which obviously is why it works so well. So yeah, I'm calling it fake, but maybe a couple of things could potentially be correct, but I think there's a few safe bets in there as well. Let me know your thoughts on this rumor though. Do you think it is real or not? And then also, what are your thoughts on everything else that we covered today in regards to Pokemon Legends CA? Do you think we are going to be getting a second set of starter Pokemon, or do you think it's just going to be one and then Sycamore's Lab's just going to be used for something entirely different? But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Let's try and hit 500. Really helps out. Subscribe if you're brand new. Ring the notification bell for daily Pokemon content. Leave a comment. All that good stuff. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, peace.